Hey guys, it's Coach Bailey here. Welcome to World History Part 2. We're going to do Tuesday's lesson today. And if you'll notice, I'm using something called Screencast-O-Matic. And I know a lot of the teachers here at Holston are using that. And I actually started using that last year when we had to go virtual. And I like it pretty well. And so basically, this is going to be how I'm going to be able to get a lot of this information to you, aside from other assignments that you do on Google Classroom. So if you'll get your study guides out, and you can go ahead and start copying the notes as we go along here with our PowerPoint here. So if you'll notice, it says World Religions, Chapter 1. Really, we don't use a book a whole lot, and really, I'm following the SOLs more than chapters, so I wouldn't get too caught up in that. And really, in World History Part 2, we're going from, World History Part 1, and several of you had that, is prehistory all the way up to 1500. We are now going from 1500 up into present time. But while we do this, we're actually going to talk about world religions. So especially for those of you that had geography, this should be a pretty good refresher for you. So let's go ahead and get into world religions. And of course, we're going to talk about the 5 world religions of Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So the power of religion. First of all, your 5 world religions have had a profound impact on cultural and civilization. So we'll go through the different ones and the symbols from the crescent moon all the way to the Christian cross. So throughout human history, religion has helped people understand the unexplainable characteristics of the world and the human condition. So all people have a religion or a worldview. So even if you're an atheist, you still have to have some kind of belief of, why do things happen? How do we originate? And so religion or worldview has always been one of the most important motivating factors in human decision making. Even going back to, the Greeks and the Romans, we think about religion, we think about ethics and doing the right thing, and from the Ten Commandments and such. But even some of the old polytheistic religions, like the Greeks, sometimes they did things to please the gods that maybe weren't necessarily the most ethical things. So, for example, the god of Dionysus, which was the goddess of wine and theater, you could go get drunk and go watch a play, and most people in a lot of religions would think that's not good. But to the Greeks, they were glorifying Dionysus in doing that. So there are 3 questions that every religion or worldview addresses. First of all, how are the forces of nature and the cosmos controlled? Why is suffering a part of human experience? We'll really get to that when we get to Buddhism and Siddhartha Gautama. But even today, in our society with the prevalence of Christianity, a lot of times you'll say, why do bad things happen to good people? And then how can suffering be relieved? The earliest religions were polytheistic. Remember, poly means more than one. So polytheistic religions. And polytheistic religions explain the forces of nature and human characteristics as being controlled by many gods and goddesses. So poly means many, theistic is gods. So we're talking about many gods and goddesses, which will be different from our 5 world religions that we'll get into, except for Hinduism. Monotheistic religions, mono means one, explains that all the forces of the cosmos are being controlled by a single God. So polytheism, poly is many, mono is one. And then a deity is another name for a god or goddess. Hinduism. So let's talk about Hinduism. Hinduism emerged in India. It is concentrated in India and parts of Southeast Asia today. And it has influenced the Indian society and culture and has made important contributions to classical India. So Hinduism is an extremely diverse religion. If you think about India itself, it's an extremely diverse country. There's over 14 languages that are spoken there. But here's the thing about Hinduism that makes it differently. It cannot be traced to a single founder or set of ideas. So we think about Muhammad in Islam. We think about Siddhartha Gautama in Buddhism. We think about Jesus Christ with Christianity. But with Hinduism, it really cannot be traced to a single founder or a set of ideas. The beliefs and practices of Hinduism, well, first of all, they believe in many forms of one God. So Brahma is the creator God. Vishnu is the God who preserves new creations. And Shiva is the destroyer God. So again, a lot of times with these polytheistic beliefs, it's the idea that I'm going to pray to a certain god or goddess. So, for example, in the Greek times, speaking of polytheism, anytime you went into battle and you were fighting, or maybe you were competing in the Olympics, you prayed to the goddess Nike, which was the goddess of victory. And then in our pop culture today, Nike is spelled Nike, or it's also known, and I'm even wearing it today, is Nike. Reincarnation. Hindus believe in reincarnation, which is a cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. So it's the idea that you don't die and go to heaven or go to hell. There's not an afterlife there. You're constantly being reborn. And of course, we'll talk about what determines your next reincarnation. That would be karma. Today we use that in our pop culture as good or bad karma. But karma is the knowledge that all thoughts and actions result in future consequences. I've always said any decision you make has consequences with it, whether they be positive or they be negative. You may have a big test that's coming up and you decide, you know what, I really want to do well on this test. So you're going to make a choice that you're going to study. Or it may also be where you make a decision where you don't study and then those consequences are you don't do so well. All right. Those who practice Hinduism seek to liberate the soul from emotion and the suffering of everyday life. So when a person achieves something called moksha, moksha means perfect understanding. They are released from the cycle of reincarnation and are joined to the Brahma. So you are reincarnated and kept being reincarnated until you achieve this moksha. And this is one of the reasons why it's the idea that the karma that I have, going back to that, if I'm a really good person and strive to be a better person, that when I'm reincarnated, you know what, I might have a situation better off than what I am now. I may be rich, I may be famous, or it also might be something where, you know what, you're not a very good person and you're mean to people and you don't have a very good heart. And then the next thing you know, you may be reincarnated as a snake or a cow or a pig or something. The Vedas and the Upanishads are the sacred writings of Hinduism. So think about the Bible with Christianity. Well, with Hinduism, they read the Vedas and the Upanishads. The caste system. The caste system is a strict social hierarchy that has dominated Indian culture for thousands of years. So the problem with the caste system is that you can't move up or down. I think about, the American dream that we strive for in this country. And guys know I'm a big basketball fan, and I think about Kevin Garnett, who played for the Minnesota Timberwolves and ended up going to the Celtics for a while. He talked about when he was young, his family didn't have hardly any money. And he said when he would go to school, his shoes were so bad that he would have holes in them. That he would have to take pieces of cardboard to fill in those holes because he couldn't afford any shoes. Well, then guess what? He went from being very poor to now being very rich and famous because he was able to be a very good basketball player and work at that. You can move down also. I can remember a famous boxer named James Buster Douglas who beat Mike Tyson back in the 1980s. And he ended up winning millions and millions of dollars. I'm talking like 20, $30 million. And within 10 years, he was homeless. Well, in the caste system, you are stuck in that caste and you can't move out. A person's place on the caste was determined by their birth. So if your dad was a farmer, you're going to be a farmer. If your dad is an attorney, you're going to be an attorney. So it depends on your birth and your parents' occupation. And the caste system influenced all social interactions and choices of occupation. So you could not be friends with someone who was in a different class. You could not marry someone in a different class. And it also chose you may be so smart in medicine that you may be able to come up with a cure for cancer. But if your dad was a grave digger, you're going to be a grave digger. Speaking of grave diggers and such, there were people called untouchables. These were people who were outside of the caste system because their occupation made them ritually unclean. So you can see here, look at these guys. How would you like to have the job of cleaning out a sewer or going down and maybe digging graves and things of that such? So those are the people who are the untouchables. The belief in karma and reincarnation reinforce the caste system. So it's an idea that, hey, you know what? Even if you're an untouchable, if I'm a really good person, maybe I can get out of being living such a rough life, where in my next life I can have a much better hand that's dealt me as far as the type of life that I live.
Hinduism is the ancient religion of India. It's the third largest religion in the world with over 1 billion followers. And the majority of Hindus do live in India, which is the only Hindu majority country in the world. For many people, it's very difficult to understand what Hinduism is, because in so many ways, it is more like a disorganized religion than an organized religion. Hinduism has no founder. It has no common language, no common deity, no common scripture, no common ritual. All of the things that we think about when we think about bounded, organized religion. Most Hindus would believe that we all have a soul, and that soul is a reflection of God. So that individual soul that we all possess means that our natures are inherently divine, that we can know God by going inside of ourselves. For Hindus, the soul is reincarnated over many lifetimes, and the goal of Hindu life is to achieve liberation from this cycle of rebirth, liberation from the cycle of suffering. For Hindus, it's not just that humans have a soul, but all sentient beings have a soul, including animals. So in India, one will see the multiplicity of depictions of the divine. You will see the divine represented in animal form, for example. One way to think about this notion of our souls being inherently divine is through the Hindu greeting of Namaste, which is a traditional greeting in India. And it literally means the divinity within me acknowledges and salutes the divinity within you. So in this simple greeting, we see a core Hindu theological belief that's articulated. In the most ancient Hindu text, the Rig Veda, there is a verse that says, God is one, but the wise call God by many names. Or truth is one, but the wise call truth by many names. So built right into the heart of the tradition is this notion of pluralism. There is no way to convert to Hinduism. It's different strokes for different folks. When I was growing up as a Hindu, my parents would tell me there are many paths up the mountain, but they're all leading to the same place. And so at its core, Hinduism has a great deal of respect for the other world religious traditions and recognizes them as equally legitimate paths to understanding ourselves and understanding God.
Okay, guys, so that finishes up Hinduism. I've got a Google Doc, a little assignment that I want you to do. And then in our next class, we will start on Buddhism. See you.